All right, so I am live with Rockstar Realtor Andrea McDonald. Andrea's been on the team for a long, long time, way longer than I've been on the team. And she's got this amazing cottage in the Kawarthas, I believe in Muskoka. And not only does she get to enjoy it all summer long, she also rents it out and enjoys some income coming from that. So I wanted to ask her about the cottage. So let's get right into it. Where is your cottage located and why did you buy the cottage in the first place?
So the cottage is located in the Kawarthas on Buckhorn Lake. And the main reason that we bought it initially, we actually bought it in July 2020, the middle of the pandemic, or I guess the very beginning of the pandemic. And I had rented a cottage for the summer just to have a vacation, to get out. We just needed a change of pace. And we had always talked about one day we want to have a cottage, but I didn't really know how conducive it was with my schedule because it's evenings, weekends, like to get away. I just didn't know how much time we would actually spend up there. So enter the pandemic, we're stuck at home and I'm like, hey, we've got to book something. So I booked a cottage. It wasn't cheap. And then it didn't have Wi-Fi and something else. And my husband was like, you spent how much for a week to go away? I was like, we got to go. So he's like, you know what? Let's go look at cottages.
Nice.
So I was like, great. So we did a lot of due diligence. We knew we wanted to be in the Kawarthas for a couple of reasons. We have a couple of friends that are in the area and we knew that they loved it. And also having children, it's a 2-hour, I think it's 2 hours and 14 minutes from door to door for us. So the accessibility back and forth, you can take the 407. It just made sense for us.
Is there a maximum amount of length that you would recommend sticking with, like in terms of length of time to get to your cottage?
So I think it's personal preference, right? Like how long you want to be in the car with, especially if you have kids. If that changes things drastically. We didn't want to go to Muskoka for that reason. Also, Muskoka can be a little bit more expensive, but there's like one main way to get to Muskoka. So if there's traffic or an accident, that 3 hours might turn into 4 or maybe even more. So what we liked is that going to the Kawarthas, at least where our particular cottage is, you can take the 407 to the very end and then kind of go up from there. But then there's multiple routes from that point also. So,
smart.
In almost the 3 years that we've been there, we've never hit traffic or it's never taken us more than 2:30 to kind of get there. So that was like a big thing for us, especially if you're just going up for the weekend. Sometimes we'll go right after Friday when the kids finish school. So, you want to make the most out of your time.
Okay. What systems do you use to both rent it and enjoy it yourself?
So we have it set up. We use it less and less, I find, as the time goes on. So especially in the summer, we only go up maybe 2 times and we rent it fully the rest of the time. And we actually spend more time there off season. So I do everything myself. I don't have it on Airbnb. I use a platform called cottagesincanada.com where basically you post your link and you can, similar to Kijiji, when you post a link and you can pay for like the premium, the gold, the silver package in terms of visibility for your listing.
Is that all across Canada, this website for listings,
I believe,
or just Muskoka?
Well, it's Cottages in Canada, and then I think from there you can narrow down as to where your cottage is.
Yeah.
So I have my listing on there, and then from there, when people respond to or inquire about your listing, the emails come directly to you. So I personally like that because we also use the cottage ourselves. I'm pretty picky about who's going to come and stay and rent. So I do a lot of due diligence and I'm creeping them on Facebook and Instagram and asking lots of questions and have a pretty thorough contract for them to go through as well. That also entails it's a little bit more work for me also to do that. But for peace of mind, I'm fine with that. And as time has gone on, I find we have probably about 50% of our weeks rented every summer are repeat guests. So that makes it a lot easier. It's kind of by the end of the summer, we have a lot of people, can we book for next year yet? So that takes off, a lot of the pressure and time commitment. For me personally, I didn't want to put it on Airbnb because I didn't know how much control I would have over that, right? Where you just schedule it, book it, and someone shows up. So I just found it gave me a little bit more control over booking it. And then also both for myself and for the renters, there wasn't any additional fees.
Okay. Where did you get the contract and how does it protect you? And what are the rules around when it becomes a long-term lease and kind of regulated by the Ontario Landlord Tenant Board?
I think you have to be over 30 days for it to be qualified. Someone will have to fact check
Okay.
that. But
I've heard 28, so similar.
Yeah, it's basically a month rental is when it it kind of falls into that. In terms of where my contract came from, I still am part of a really good Facebook group. That's just for cottage owners. So there's lots of files that are shared in there. And then I have a couple friends, and there's even a couple Rockstar members that everybody owns cottages. And mine is kind of an accumulation of what parts of all the different ones that I liked and put together. And then I have had it reviewed by my lawyer as well. And she tweaked a few things just to make sure I was on point with that.
Okay. So if someone were to mess around staying at the cottage, then the landlord tenant board wouldn't be involved. Would it be like police? If somebody, let's say, stayed longer than they're supposed to, you'd call the police to get them out?
I believe it would be at that point because they're in breach of that. It's like a short-term stay, and they're just there just for the week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And have you had any issues like that?
Thankfully, I've literally had 0 issues at that cottage.
Okay.
At all.
Is it a 3-season, 2-season, 4-season cottage?
It's a 4-season.
Okay.
So it's a pretty good footprint. It's like 1,400 square feet upstairs, 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, and then downstairs. Because of the elevation, the basement is actually a walkout to the yard, which is really nice. So like tons of windows down there. There's 2 additional bedrooms down there, plus another washroom and like a rec area.
Oh, nice.
So it's really nice for rentals in the summer because 2 families essentially can rent it out together and enjoy it. So that kind of justifies the higher price point as well.
Separate kitchens?
No, there's just one main kitchen. Yeah. And then over the time that we've owned it, I don't necessarily think we would have put the same money into it if it was purely just a rental, but we've done quite a few renovations, like to the kitchen. The main floor has basically been fully renovated. We did a lot of renovations outside to the backyard with the fire pit and stone and all that type of stuff, which has obviously really helped us with the price point going up too.
So who would you sum up that buying a cottage and also renting it out is for? Like, it seems like you're getting the best of both worlds a little bit.
Yeah, I would say of all the investment properties that we've ever bought over time, this is our best purchase because we actually get to enjoy it as well. And, you know, as more and more people are buying vacation properties, whether it's here or in Florida or Costa Rica, those seem to be the properties that everyone loves the most, right? Because you can get your own personal enjoyment out of it, but also it kind of, obviously depending on the price point, but it basically pays for itself, you know, over your rental season as well.
Yeah. So does it kind of break even for you?
Yeah. I think for the first little bit, like because we put a good amount of renovations into it, it didn't. But our summer essentially pays our mortgage for the year.
Wow. But you were also designing it for yourself too. Like
for sure. Like we did things more, you know, to a higher level, or, you know, the renovations that we did, we maybe wouldn't have done to that extent if it was just a rental. Okay. We also last May, so it's just coming up in a year, we purchased the cottage right next door to us also.
Oh, nice.
So that's a bit different in that one is a 3-season. It was in terrible shape. The people that owned it previous to us had it in their family for probably like 30 years. So over time, they went up less and less and less as the owners got older. So it was just super dated, and, you know, it's 3 seasons, so you can't be there in the winter. But we thought, you know, long-term, if we have our cottage for a long time, it's the ease of having another cottage side by side where I have my cleaners are set up, my lawn company, like it's a easy turnover. Mm-hmm. And then for us as well, like, we're thinking if as our kids get older and they don't want to hang out with us at some point, you know, there's another space that when they're teenagers, they can come up with some of their friends and we're all still kind of on the same property. So,
oh yeah, that's, you know, cool.
They'll
love that.
Yeah. That was kind of like a selfish purchase that way as well. But that one is like full rental. So, you know, we've done some updates to it to make it, you know, nicer and better for rental season and stuff, but we haven't done it to the same degree that, you know, our main cottage has done. So
what are your thoughts on buying a 2-season versus 3-season versus 4-season? How do you think about it?
So one thing to know with buying 3-season versus 4-season is the banks don't like 3-season. So you're typically putting a higher amount down. I believe we put either 30 or 35% down on that one. You can't do the typical 20% down.
With a big bank or with an alternative lender?
I think we ended up going with a B lender for this one. That also goes into because of the amount of properties we have and stuff as well.
So it could have possibly been an A lender?
Possibly, but it's still a higher down payment because they don't like to insure it. Then you kind of have to consider, because you only have 3 season, which essentially is May. It's kind of like May until like October-ish, like around Thanksgiving, depending on what the weather is. That's your rental season. So can you rent it enough that it makes sense to carry as well, right? Because then you're losing the rest of the off season by not being able to rent it. So,
But you're not opposed to it because you obviously just bought a 3 season.
For sure. Like it doesn't bother us. We kind of like it because then when we're up there in the holidays, like nobody else is up there. It's really quiet, right? And it's fine that way. And I think for the amount that we can rent it in off season, it still makes sense for us. But I think that will all come down to obviously your purchase price and then what you can rent it for, whether it's nightly, weekly, however you end up doing it.
Is there such a thing as 2 season or it's just 3 season?
If there is,
4
I
season?
don't know.
It's not like a common term?
Yeah, because I think 3 season just means like you don't have, like we don't have a furnace in there, right? Like nothing that would heat it throughout the winter.
Yeah.
So that
is it insulated still?
It's insulated.
Okay.
We would probably, to change it over, we would probably add more insulation.
Okay.
To obviously like everything needs to be properly done, but yeah.
And is it difficult doing renovations in Muskoka with properties on the lake?
So renovations anywhere can be challenging.
Yeah.
We've somewhat lucked out that we've found good trades in the area. But for example, when we did our renovation to our main cottage where we did the full kitchen and then we did some built-in closets, we brought our millwork guy that we've used at all of our personal properties here. He's from Vaughan. He brought his fabricator for the stone from the area as well. So we lucked out that we have a good relationship with him, that he was fine to drive.
Did he charge a premium or?
No, that's why he's a really good guy. We've used him for all of our properties. Nice. And then I've joined like local Facebook groups where it's a great place to find people in terms of cleaners. We found just last year, I was looking for someone to stain our dock. And then this guy has now he built a staircase for us at the second cottage. And he does a lot of like the odd jobs that my husband can do, but we're trying to take away less work for when we're up there so that we can enjoy more, because it's a lot of work owning a cottage as well. Mm-hmm. Right. So, the tough part is when we've had a couple of like the bigger renovations, it's hard to just give someone the key and let it happen. So, my husband will be up there a lot, or we're driving back and forth to kind of check on the project to make sure it's going okay. You figure it out, you get it done. Yeah.
Do you have personal belongings at the property? And if so, where do you store them when renting to other people?
Yeah. So we have like a closet upstairs that has a lock on it where we'll put like toiletries and stuff like that we pull out when we get there. And then in the basement as well, there's a whole other cupboard that has all of like linens. And if we have any extra personal stuff, we kind of throw it in there also. And those are both locked.
Okay.
So those are good to have.
Got it. And then lastly, how does the cottage market differ from the residential market? Maybe overall, or even if you want to get into the details of like right now, it's spring going on summer 2023. You could speak to that. Whatever you want.
Yeah,
with that question.
I think it also has like a very seasonal time frame, because if people, like when we were looking, for example, we kind of had a cutoff date that if we didn't find a cottage by X date, we weren't going to purchase this year, because we wanted to be able to take possession and enjoy it for the summer, opposed to taking possession, November, December, and then not having any rental income for it. So I think a lot of people, when they're looking, tend to start looking, in springtime, similar to when we have a springtime market here, so that they're closing for summer. But then what we have learned is there's great deals to be had in those off months, because in some areas, there's less buyers as well. So similar, like over the past couple of years, similar to what we were seeing here with prices going crazy, they did see that a lot in Kawarthas and Muskoka, because with nobody being able to travel, everybody wanted the staycation, right? Or the vacation property that was here. So I think there was a huge surge in those types of properties, because even though we purchased at the beginning of, I guess, mid 2020, what our cottage was appraised for a year and a half later. Granted, we did some renovations, but even without the renovations, it's pretty crazy what that kind of did to the market. So I think it's still a pretty active market. What we've been told, we have a close relationship to an agent up there that kind of keeps us up to date on the market. 3 seasons are a little bit more challenging to sell. right? Like people are typically speaking want to purchase the 4 seasons first because it's a year round, especially if it's for personal enjoyment as well, where, there's not going to be as much of a premium for a 3 season in comparison to a 4 season.
Are you going up there in winter, like dead winter, January, February? Yep. You're going up there?
Yep.
What's there to do?
We can skate on the ice, which is amazing. So we do a lot of stuff outside. The property is, kind of like gradually goes down to the lake from the top to the bottom. So there's a driveway, like a joint driveway between the 2 cottages, which is awesome for tobogganing. Like it picks up some good speed. So, we do stuff like that. We're skating out on the lake, which is so much fun. And it's pretty shallow where we are too. So you can like walk all the way down, which is cool because normally you don't see that unless you're out on a boat.
Okay.
So yeah, there's some cool outdoor stuff to do. We're not into snowmobiling or anything, but you'll see that going around. And
so winter sports, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I had one more question for you. Damn. What was it? Wintertime. Oh, are you just picking the dates that you want to go for the year, booking them like ahead of time? Like, okay, we're going 4 times in the summer, 3 times in the winter, and then you just book as much as you can around that?
Yeah, we like pre-book our week. So I always know we go like the 3rd or the 4th week in July every year. That's kind of our week. And then I always book the long week, like the Labor Day weekend for us. Try to book up as much as we can and then go from there. So there will be certain things where, if Thanksgiving isn't booked, like I'll leave it open on the calendar and we're like, okay, up until about 2 weeks before, if it's not booked, then okay, we'll go up.
Once you have a better idea of plans.
Yeah, it depends. Like unless we have big plans to go up. And then, this summer we're like, oh, we've been up quite a bit and we kind of have the bug to travel again. So we're like, well, maybe the week that we have in July, because typically in the summer you only rent for a full week. You don't break it up. But then you still have a lot of people requesting, obviously, just a weekend. So we may break up the week that we have, like, and rent out the Friday to Monday as an example. And you can kind of, adjust accordingly that way. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's all my questions around cottages.
Awesome.
Yeah.